Welcome to the 2025 Motorsport 101 review of the IndyCar Grand Prix at Mid-Ohio. We're here to celebrate and talk about Alex Palou's Wait a minute, Scott Dixon won this?
What?
Where the hell was that in the script?
What?
All right,
What?
cue the music.
Welcome to episode 599 of Motorsport 101. A professional handle the intro for once. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Dre Harrison. Glad you could join us as ever. And you could probably already guess who's infiltrated our network once again. But I'll talk about that very, very shortly. Thanks in advance to everyone who tolerated the fact that we had to get the Christian Horner episode out a little bit early and this wasn't on early access as a result. Please forgive us. We did really want to get the Horner subject out as quickly as possible. So, needs and must. Please forgive us. In the meantime, yes, it's IndyCar at Mid-Ohio. And, well, it was looking fantastic for Alex Palou until it very suddenly didn't. Imagine that. Imagine taking all these jokes about Lando Norris, about being a bottler, and it ends up going towards the arguably strongest person in all of motorsport this year. It's amazing how these things turn out. Anyway, sitting with us to talk about that and other IndyCar-related things for the next half hour or so is Mr. RJ O'Connell. Hello, RJ.
You know, if I was primarily a boxing journalist who got roped into doing all sports television sometime down the line, I would have said something like this. I don't know when it's going to happen, but Scott Dixon is going to fall off a cliff. Scott Dixon is going to be a bum in very short order. And you know what? Like the last cliff theory, it would have been very wrong.
Yeah, I hate how much that was accurate and also cursed at the exact same time. But here we are. Yes, I can't even really argue with that one. It's certainly true. And joining
Sad thing is, I thought you were going to refer to Jim Lampley for a second there.
Oh, no, they were together. Him and Matt, back in the days when HBO still presented sports.
Yes. We will not forget the 2 seasons we had of Game Theory with Bomani Jones, and of course the very short half season of Bill Simmons Any Given Wednesday. We don't speak of that around here. Also joining us on the show, he's apparently coming into this Riverside chat room with quote massive attenuator pictures. I think that's what he tells all the girls. It's frontstretch.com's Christopher DeHardy. Hello, Chris. How's it going?
It's been an incredibly productive day. Changed the oil on my car, got a new screen shield on my phone, and as soon as we're done here, I've got 3 things left to pack, and then I'm on my way to Iowa.
Yes, he's unfortunately got to freelance again in Iowa and do 2 races this weekend. The busiest man in America right here.
Woe is him. You got to go to Iowa.
The sad thing is like, if it's like last year, it's going to be a lot of effort for like nothing.
But you get to bring home some corn and a Hy-Vee. What's wrong with that? Oh wait, Hy-Vee's not there anymore now. Whoops.
Now sponsored by Suck Up. Yeah. At least this new sponsor is in a field that's like actually useful, which is agriculture and not artificial intelligence, which is a great segue to talk about our Mid-Ohio race, where artificial intelligence did play a part in the top 2 finishers in the race, but it didn't go the way you expected, as Trey alluded to. And as Chris alluded to in the intro.
Can I just say before we get the formalities out of the way, it's hilarious to me that so many people wanted Alex Palou not to win this race due to the fact it was a special open AI livery dark mode car, and instead the race was won by the man who's had the open AI sponsorship on his car all season. Bunch of hypocrites.
It's the PNC Bank car with like an open AI sticker on it.
2 open AI stickers, and you could see them. Bunch of hypocrites. I will fight every last one of these people.
Look, we're back to normal. DHL yellow and red is back on the car. The good karma is back.
The good karma is back, although I suspect it won't be for Alex Palou anytime soon, because, hey, if you said the words, and I quote, "Oh my God, he's fuming" in regards to Alex Palou making a mistake on the end of that race, have yourself a drink and good luck trying not to pickle your liver. That and a whole lot more over the next 30, 40 minutes or so here on Motorsport 101. But in the meantime, there's the places you can find us. We're on youtube.com/Motorsport 101. We're on Facebook.com/Motorsport 101. As Krista Hardy still has a simulated beer drinker on his phone as an app. What year is this? 2012? Jesus Christ.
2008, actually.
Oh, yeah, it shows. It shows. We just had the Olympics in Beijing, of all places. Jeez, not even London, Beijing. Anyway, we're on Instagram at Motorsport 101 Pod, and you can check us out on TikTok as well at M101_podcast. Chris, if you take one more distraction while I jet this device, I'm going to kick you off this stream. Basically, you can also find us. We're also on Twitter at Motorsport_101.
Are we though? Are we on the platform? This artificial intelligence app called itself that?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
I'm still part of the resistance. That SOB will not take that platform away from me.
Therein lies the problem, Christopher. That's the problem. Anyway, that's also a place you can find us at Harrison101HD or at Dre Harrison, BlueSky.social, RJ O'Connell for RJ on there. If you'd like to follow Krista Hardy and add more pain to your social media existence, you can do so at Cedar Hardy on Twitter. If you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/Motorsport 101. And of course, as well, you can also check us out on our website, motorsport101.com, with full written reviews of both IndyCar in Mid-Ohio and, of course, Formula One's British Grand Prix. I really should do some writing on Christian Horner, but everybody else seems to have done that already. There will be some mid-season reviews for Formula One and MotoGP up in the next couple of weeks, so we can look forward to that as bonus content, because that's fun. I'll do one for IndyCar, but we're already well past halfway by the time we get past Iowa. Yay! My bad. Timing sucks. And to be fair, how many ways can I possibly demonstrate, hey, Alex Palou is winning the championship? Isn't that fun? Anyway, segueing in there slightly clunkily, but we'll do so anyway. After this, here's our review of IndyCar at Mid-Ohio.
Well, listeners, Alex Palou made perhaps the biggest mistake, the most perplexing and shocking error of his young IndyCar career thus far. He still finished second. It all looked like another day in the office at Mid-Ohio Sports Cars. Yes, Palou qualified in pole for the third time this season, only the third time. He was pulling away from Christian Lundgaard during the race, a very familiar tale. Only Scott Dixon on a very tough two-stropper was a threat. And remember, two-stropper made even harder because they lengthened this race. And Palou would come out ahead of him after the Spaniard made his third and final stop. It was all looking good for Palou to take his 7th win out of 10 races. But just a handful of laps to go, he runs wide at turn 9, 6 to go. He loses the lead to Dixon. The Kiwi holds his nerve to take his first win of 2025, making him just the third different winner of the season as we move past halfway. Honda in the Honda sponsored race still has not lost in 2025. And with this result, Scott Dixon now has 21 consecutive winning seasons in North American motorsport, a streak that is older than teammate Kiffin Simpson. His 23rd season with a win in 25 since his debut in 2001. His 59th career victory takes him to within 8 of the great A.J. Foyt. Dre, where do we start? Do we start with the winner? Or do we start with the guy that should have won this one?
Well, I'll give Scott Dixon his early flowers first, because it's only fair we get the race winner out of the way. We just spent the whole episode talking most about the person who finished in third, so I think it's only fitting we readdress the balance to the force on this one. Look, the element in this that I think a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that IndyCar specifically changed this race and a few others on their calendar this season, specifically so that what Scott Dixon did couldn't be done. And that was effectively win it on a 2-stopping fuel save. This was an 80-lap race. It's now a 90-lap race. And that was designed to just take the two-stopper out of reach. In fact, Will Buxton said on commentary after the first caution, which we'll talk about later, you needed, according to their numbers in the box, 12 laps of caution to realistically make a two-stop work. We only had 8 in this race. And yet, Dixon still found a way to two-stop his way to glory. Yes, he got a little bit of help due to Alex Palou, but at worst, he would have finished in second. And this was a classic weekend where Dixon was quick, but he probably wasn't going to win this race on paper, but he found a way to win purely off strategy. And that is what we associate Dixon arguably for most, besides being a ginger in an orange car that is, well, when it wasn't Target sponsored anyway. Making these ridiculous fuel saves work. He does it almost like 2 or 3 times a year at this point, and this one got him a win. And as in the words of the great Gary Player, the more he plays, the luckier he gets. And yeah, he got lucky on that one, but they all count in the scorers table. And yeah, it was a brilliant performance. Only one other man made that work, and I'll talk about him later on, but it was a magnificent performance from Dixon, no matter how you look at how the number 10 finished that race.
Chris, your perspective, obviously you were there. Where do you come in on Dixon winning with more cunning and savvy than speed? I mean, he pulled off a 30, 31, and 29 lap stints during the race when most people were very fortunate to get like 25, 27. Then, of course, Palou is still comfortably in position to win, and he doesn't.
It all goes back to the beginning of the race. We'll talk about what happened to cause the first yellow flag of the race. But when the yellow came out on the first lap of the race, immediately the Mike Hall and Scott Dixon both said, "Okay, we're going to do massive fuel save under the full course yellow here," and Scott actually spoke on Speed Street, Connor Daly's podcast. Like, they didn't really need the second yellow, but it only helped them out. It was all really down thanks to the first yellow of the race, which that's what made everything possible for them. And not only that, but I mean, if you look at the drivers that also ran the two-stop strategy, you had Felix Rosenquist, Rinus VK, Kiffin Simpson. Oh, yeah, they're all Hondas. No Chevys were able to do it. They were able to make the fuel numbers work. So, yeah, it was just one of those things where, once they committed to it in the very beginning, they were able to actually make it work. And it also kind of helped that, they remembered during the race, hey, even if someone, goes past us a little bit, we're fine because we're going to make one fewer pit stop. Although, let's face it, if Alex Palou doesn't bottle turn 9, this is the 7th win of the year.
It's a fitting transition, really, because I know I made it sound routine when I wrote the review of this going in, but it really did feel that way. It felt like Alex Palou was almost too much on autopilot this weekend. He was comfortably 2 tenths quicker than the field in qualifying. It never stopped looking like Alex Palou would qualify on pole, which is amazing because he's a very good qualifier. I wouldn't necessarily say he's the best qualifier, but he's also the only man this season to have more than one pole position. So again, Palou doesn't have a discernible weakness in IndyCar right now. He found a way to get it done, qualified on pole by a couple of attempts. The only real threat to him on the same strategy was Christian Lundgaard, who had another very solid race. Yep. The second fastest man on raw speed all day long was Lundgaard, but it was just classic Palou. Stay at the front, chip away at it, 2 tenths out of Christian every other lap. Gap goes to half a second, 1.52. And then, to be fair, the 10 crew was money on their pit stops this weekend as well. Got extra advantage, got Palou out onto relatively clean tracks. Lundgaard was caught up in traffic multiple times trying to chase him down. That gap was 7 or 8 seconds by the time he got to the final stint of that race. And Palou was able to stretch out that first stint on a set of of sticker red tires and was able to take it 5 laps longer than Lundgaard could. So Palou was dancing around trying to stretch his tires, and he was still going faster than Christian Lundgaard was. Palou was comfortably the fastest man here this weekend, which makes his mistake all the more baffling. Maybe he was phoning this in a little bit too much. Maybe he was on autopilot too much to the point where he lost concentration. It reminds me a lot of Marc Marquez at COTA earlier this year, a track he's won at so many times. He's been so dominant over there through the years that he just probably just lost his cool, lost his rhythm, and then just makes that mistake at turn 9, because it was the second mistake he'd made in that race. He made another one going up the beach area where he ran wide and lost a second and a half. It was very un-Palou-like. So I don't know if this is just a blip or whether it's just he lost concentration. I don't think there's anything deeper to read into it than that, but it's a silly mistake. But amazingly, because he finished in second and he still added another 20 points to his championship lead, it really just doesn't feel like it matters.
Yeah, because Kyle Kirkwood had a very anonymous follow-up race here in mid-Ohio. He finished 8th, which is not bad. But when Alex Palou is second and growing that lead out to 113 points, once again, I refer to your closing salvo, Chris, at the end of the 2024 season. How do you stop Alex Palou? How do you beat Alex Palou when he's doing that stuff? You don't. I know that's a rough paraphrase, but it's true. Even when Alex Palou makes the silliest mistake he's had so far, he's still got 2 races in hand over the field. He could actually take Iowa off and still lead the standings once we're back at Laguna Seca or wherever it is we're racing. Toronto?
Yeah, we got Toronto afterwards.
Won at both.
He's won at both before. He was second here 2 years ago with a broken front wing.
Yeah, that's just the quality we expect. Speaking of quality, Dre, I know there were actually a couple people that made this 2-stop work. I know you wanted to talk about one of them. Could I just say, though, Felix Rosenqvist, low-key, it's having a really good season. And this was another solid result in 6th.
This time it was Black Sabbath that was powering him to glory. So I guess you could say Felix was really on the crazy train.
That's gimmick infringement, man.
Yeah, I had to do it in honor of Krista Hardy's appearance here. It's the one dad joke you'll get from me all podcast. But yes, Felix Rosenqvist, again, followed up a really strong day at Road America with another strong performance here. And again, one of only 3 dudes who made the 2-stopper work. And why not do it for Ozzy Osbourne, right? I mean, we all love Ozzy here. And look, I was looking at my table, putting my notes together for this podcast, and then you very quietly realize something, that the Meyer Shank cars are 6th and 8th in points right now. Felix Rosenqvist is having a very good season. The season we all kind of thought that he had in him all this time, he's actually delivering on that. And Marcus Armstrong might be the biggest surprise in IndyCar this year, that very quietly has gone about his business and is now sitting in 8th place. Again, this was the season we were hoping that Marcus Armstrong could have, because we all knew he had it in him. The road course pace when he was with Chip Ganassi proper was there. We saw it on multiple occasions where he was running in the top 3, top 5 on merit, and you're thinking this guy could be something. Very quietly, 6 top 10 finishes this season, 5 in the last 6 rounds. Just very strong, all-round, point-stuffing performances from Marcus Armstrong. And he's looking like someone who actually, the change of scenery is doing him some good while still having the benefits of Chip Ganassi support. So to have Meyer Shank up there right now in P6 and P8 is very, very impressive. And it makes me sad, because Raptor makes a very good point in our chat, on our Patreon chat about this. Chip probably did end up making the right call, taking Marcus over Linus Lundqvist. I wish there was a world where they were both still on this grid. quite frankly. But fair play to Chip. Seemingly, he made the right decision. And Armstrong's proven himself very, very worthy of a seat of that quality. In fact, if it wasn't for the pain situation, he probably should be in the number 8 car as the full blown third member of that team.
Even then, like Kevin Simpson has taken a huge step forward. That 10th place he had at Mid-Ohio does not really do justice to the kind of race that he had. He had a top 5 car all race long.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started third. He was just tremendous and really his entire season. This is really a microcosm. His last 4 races have been a complete microcosm of the season. Because, like, I'll admit it, before the season started, I didn't. It was a complete wild card. I didn't know if Kiffin just used last year to take his lumps. I didn't think that this was going to be like this from Kiffin. But oh my God. He was running top 5, top 6 almost the entire race until he had just like one mistake on that final pit stop. And like, I do feel bad for him, but like, I never would have predicted him to have, a 5th place at Detroit and 3 other top 10 finishes this year so far. That was not something I had on my radar at all. And he's proven me wrong. He's proven a lot of people wrong. And he's done a great job.
I'll be the first person to admit I thought he came into IndyCar under-seasoned. I felt like another year in Indy Next would have probably done him some good. He's had to jump off the deep end a little bit with Chip, and he probably joined them at the complete wrong time, given they were running 5 cars effectively that season. The downsizing to 3 has seemingly done everybody the world of good in that organization. Palou is having an all-time great season right now. Dixon, maybe not the peaks are quite as high as they've been in previous years, but he's still running 4th in points right now. He's being his usual very consistent self, doesn't have very many bad days. Classic Dixon. And Kiffin Simpson has genuinely taken the leap forward in life after the month of May. He's been a top 10 driver in the series, which I did not think Kiffin Simpson would be, especially so quickly after last year where he struggled. So a salute to everybody at Chip Ganassi. They seem to be firing on all cylinders right now, and it helps when you when you got a Honda in your car and you haven't lost the race this season. It's all coming up Millhouse for CGR right now. If you consider their technical partnership, they've got all of their cars in the top 15, and they've got 4 of them in the top 8 of the points, which is ridiculous on any level.
He looks a lot more like ELMS LMP2 champion Kiffin Simpson than inconsistent Indy Nets midfielder Kiffin Simpson. And that's a high compliment.
Very much so. Very much so. We got to talk about Team Penske again here. And I'm almost getting bored of talking about Team Penske, but I'm not at the same time because holy shit.
This is bad.
The box score reads Scott McLaughlin, 23rd. Will Power, 26th. Josef Newgarden, 27th. They thought, hey, Gateway was so nice, we had to do it twice. Because that's effectively what this was. It's a carbon copy of that weekend. And again, a series of unfortunate events. You'd think Lemony Snicket was the race organizer for this one. Josef Newgarden's race lasted 10 seconds. Locks a rear axle, braking into turn 1 on the restart, puts it in the wall. His race is done, puts Graham Rahal in the gravel as well, taking avoided action, which was unfortunate. Will Power has an engine failure, effectively. I think it was the oil line or something like that stopped working on his car. So he was the second man out in this race, and we didn't even see what happened with Scott McLaughlin. Apparently, I had to find this out via watching his YouTube channel and watching his vlog series about this. Apparently, he had a tire delamination in his final stint. So he ends up 23rd.
They put the Penske press release. They're like, they just could not get the tire. They had one tire that just went bad. And then they also had issues with the red tires earlier in the race, apparently, too. They couldn't get the reds to last early on. So I think they ran 2 stints on blacks for McLaughlin's car. And of course, with the black sidewall primary compound tires not being the preferred tire, gone away.
You know, Dre, I think that if Penske had just abused the conflict of interest so brazenly that they disqualified every car in this race, I think Penske might have snuck away with one car in the top 15.
Yeah, and they probably would have accidentally gifted Callum Ilott a win by accident because they probably would have botched getting that right too.
We have to at least give Callum a good shout. The fact that he started 24th to finish 13th, he did a great job. The whole team did a great job, at least with him.
Yeah, Prima didn't tell that he sucked this weekend. It's a plus. No, it's. I can't believe
back to the table. I
can't believe I'm saying this. There is a sincere, genuine chance Team Penske goes winless on the year. Yep,
it's not unthinkable. Notes. Yeah, I put it in the set list. The notes. I referred to this in a recent episode. The 1998 and 1999 seasons. In 1998, Al Unser Jr. and Andre Ribeiro go winless on the season. Unser Jr.'s third straight winless season. Ribeiro is seasoned so bad that he retires at the end of the season in his early 30s. 1999 is just a mess. Al Unser Jr. is hurt, then he's winless. Both cars are Penske's and Lola's. They're swapping out chassis. And all of this is not even the worst thing that happens to them this season. Rest in peace, Gonzalo Rodriguez. It gets better after that. 2000, they completely change out all the equipment that's not working for them. They stop making their own chassis. They just buy some Reynards and add a little special sauce. They drop Goodyear for Firestone. They drop Mercedes-Benz for Honda. All things that Paul Tracy wanted at the end of 1997 and got fired for one.
And then he started to win.
And then Penske started to win again. But now it's 2025. They don't have open choice of chassis. They don't have open choice of tires. They own the Chevrolet. Ilmore helps build the Chevrolet engines, and that's all part of the Penske family. Oh, they also don't have Tim Cindric anymore.
It doesn't help. I mean, look, and a lot of people on Blue Sky were very quick to point out, well, Honda's guys are better built to run hybrid engines in IndyCar as a result. To which my response was, well, that doesn't explain that McLaren have been far better than them as a team on the same engines this season. Ed Carpenter has had cars, on occasion, be stronger than Penske this season. They are still, at times, the third best team on their own engines, which they build themselves.
Some days it's even the fourth.
Yeah.
Their satellite team at AJ Foyt Racing.
Yeah.
On their day.
We have an uncomfortable conversation in this episode. That's going to happen later on. Hell, sometimes even the fifth, because let's not forget Connor Daly's performance at Gateway. Yeah. It's what, his fifth, sixth place finish in his IndyCar career?
All I'm saying is, if one of these dudes does not win at Iowa, or does not win at Milwaukee, or does not win at Nashville, it ain't looking good.
Your next best bet is Portland, because Power has dominated there several times, and McLaughlin had his most dominant win of 2022 at Portland.
The point is, they can win anywhere. They're Team Penske. Like, yes, they are particularly strong on short ovals in recent years. I'm not disputing that. I mean, Gateway was Newgarden's effective second home. He was a 5-time winner of that race before Louis Foster turned into Bill Goldberg briefly. And again, we've got 2 races in Iowa coming up. Newgarden, again, has had ridiculous performances in Iowa and a bonk to the head. Unfortunately, these things happen in racing sometimes. And arguably, he's not been quite the same at Iowa since that head injury.
I would say he's not been the same driver at all. Look, people will use conjecture to say that Jimmy Johnson was not the same since he had a bad crash at Pocono in 2017, even though there's no concrete evidence and Johnson walked away uninjured. So I'm willing to put this out on the table that since Josef Newgarden crashed out of that second Iowa race in 2022, he hasn't really been the same as a driver, probably is a person behind the scenes. Yes, he's won 2 Indianapolis 500s. He's also never won the road and street course since then. His form has dipped off every year since that happened. And he's become less and less liked among the full-time IndyCar media, whether that's perceived, whether that's real. We don't know. We're not that close to him.
Well, it's not a good sign, and sorry to cut you there, RJ, it's not a good sign when Fox openly starts mocking you on the broadcast for refusing to talk to them. Like, James Hinchcliffe hit him with the sass, saying during practice that Newgarden hadn't spoken to Fox for a month, which is not ideal for all parties when Fox has poured a ton of money into this thing. And not worth mentioning that Newgarden is the number one promoted figure in the series. Fox made their first advert about coming to IndyCar built around Josef Newgarden. They focused in a heap of their Indy 500 preview footage, sit-downs, interviews were all for Newgarden. He was their guy, and now he's not talking to them to the point where Cletus is mocking him on the broadcast like, hey, what's your best Josef Newgarden impression? And then he just walks off the set. It's brutal right now.
Four DNFs at 5 races is not going to exactly help things.
You know, in the situation, I had to go in on this because there was a lot of just fodder on social media about this entire situation the whole weekend, which led me to make my post that there's not really a real room for nuance on social media, which is why we're here on this podcast to talk about what happened. The fact matter is that with Josef being one of the 3 faces of the series, he's expected, for lack of a better term, to be more out-facing with cameras and things like that in the media landscape and things like that. Now, after Gateway, he didn't want to talk to Fox, and none of us blame him for that. He just had a very traumatic incident situation, wasn't good for him. Now, does he have to talk to Fox? Is he required to necessarily do that? No, he's free to say no to refusing to speak to the cameras. It's absolutely within his right to do that. He can if he wants. If he wants to talk, he can. But when Josef does not talk to Fox to talk about what happened, like with qualifying, for example, there's 2 things that happens in this situation. And David Lamb brought this up on Twitter. It's a really great point. Number one, when Josef doesn't speak after qualifying, he does not give himself the opportunity to defend himself. Like, if Josef talks to Kevin Lee and says, and I'm simply making these numbers up, do not quote me on this, like, this is what happened in qualifying, but like, if Josef says, yeah, I had an issue, a small mistake, and I didn't nail turns 2, turn 5, and turn 9 at Mid-Ohio, then that gives the explanation to fans, to media, everybody else. And it allows him to do the second thing of those 2 things that I was bringing up. It allows Josef to control the narrative of what is actually happening and removes all speculation about what happened that weekend. But with him not talking after Road America, with him not talking after Mid-Ohio, when there are sponsors that expect to talk after, good and bad things that take place, it does start to put a strain on what takes place with your television broadcasts. And even then, Scott McLaughlin, he had a really bad qualifying too. And he went up and talked to Kevin Lee afterwards. I think it was Kevin, and said, hey, this is what happened, and we're going to get after it tomorrow. I mean, even Scott Norwood, sorry, RJ, for saying this, even Scott Norwood, when he missed that field goal in the Super Bowl, he's talked to all the reporters until all the questions were answered. But it's gotten to a point where, with everything taking place this year, there are worries about Josef. Me personally, I actually worry about Josef and how he's doing, because he's so used to winning. He's got 31 wins, 28 of those, I want to say, are with Team Penske. This is his worst season since 2012, when he was a rookie at Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing. And there comes a point where you have to wonder, like, what exactly is going on? Is there something going on outside of the race car that's, like, maybe has an effect on this. I don't know. Josef is not, to my in my observations, he's not the same person that I've known him to be for the last decade. And I hate that because he's always been the super, cheerful, the super well promoted driver, the driver that's willing to go through, even make fun of himself with the incognito videos from 2012, 2013 that were a massive hit on social media. He did the Harlem Shake video too.
The IndyCar schedule release where he channeled his inner Ron Burgundy, drivers of the corn, all that stuff. And that was like, this guy was not shying away from the media. He was not shying away from all the appearances. But I worry that ever since he passed out after that Iowa race, that's been the flashpoint into a career that is now, it's got 2 Indianapolis 500s. It's got a handful of wins. But this is not the Josef Newgarden of 2015 to 2021 that was going to give you wins at any given track, that was going to be a title contender for the moment that he stepped into Team Penske to replace the great Juan Pablo Montoya.
I wanted to bring something y'all's attention. So this is going to be, we're going to experiment with this. This is going to be a Motorsport 101 first. So for those of you who don't know, all right, yeah, put on your lab coat. Here we go. So for those of you who don't know, a media bullpen is where all the uninitiated, where all the drivers that are going in for a weekend, they talk to those of us. There's different stations, one for Digital Media 1, Digital Media 2, which is where I'm going to be. Endemic Media, which is where Nathan Brown is. There's a station for IndyCar Radio. There's one for IndyCar TV. There's one for Bruce Martin, which I think it was Kate Davis that started that. And that was funny, I think. It's taken on a life of its own. I was in the media bullpen at Gateway, and I was standing next to Jess Peters, who does work for Fox 59 and CBS in Indianapolis. Jess is one of the hardest working members in the media center. And if anyone's ever said anything negative about her, I've never heard it, because she, busts her butt. She goes all over the place, holds the camera. She's a fantastic person. I've never had a cross moment. She's awesome. She's straight up awesome. Anyway, she was next to me at the Gateway bullpen. And at the Gateway bullpen, she asked Josef Newgarden a question that, when I have my phone out recording this, and I was blown away by the answer that I got, that I heard for this question. And I wanted to share this audio with both you, Trey. If this works, please put this in on the post-production. But I wanted y'all to hear the question that Jess asks and the answer Newgarden gave. And I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on it. So at the count of 3, let's go ahead and play this all at the same time.
But as an Indy 500 champion, the F1 schedule just came out. The Canadian GP is now conflicting with the 500.
Yeah.
What would your message be to the fans who might be trying to decide between going to Montreal or going to the Indy 500?
Come to the Indy 500. It's the biggest race in the world.
You and I, all 3 of us, I couldn't believe when he said that in front of us. I was like, you won the race twice. You crawled through the fence to go celebrate with fans. That was not the answer I was expecting to hear, because just me right now, I could list 5 or 6 things that I could sell people on the Indy 500 on instead of going to Montreal. Don't get me wrong, I would love to go to Montreal one day. But the Josef Newgarden that I, have seen develop through his time at Sarah Fisher at Carpenter's team and his beginning at Team Penske would not have answered that question like that. And I don't know what that's just more evidence on just the concern of, I don't know what has happened. And that leads me to the second part of the conversation that I wanted to have. There's a lot of silly season talk about Will Power and what has gone on. He's 44. He turns 45, I think, later on this year. I hate to be that guy, although usually I am that guy willingly. There might be a situation in the next 2 years where, if this form continues, we might be talking about 2 drivers being replaced at Team Penske instead of just 1. If we look at Team Penske's history, okay, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I'm simply looking at statistics. There are drivers who have been let go for much less than what's going on with Josef Newgarden right now. Kevin Kogan, he embarrassed the team in 1982 with the star, whatever happened there. No one officially knows him, maybe Kevin. And he didn't drive for the team the following year. Elliot Castroneves, he went winless for 3 years. He got a win at Iowa in 2017. And then did part-time for Penske and IndyCar and just went off to IMSA before, he got let go because he wanted to run in IndyCars again. Tom Sneva, he won the national championship for Roger Penske's team in 1978, but he went winless that year, and he got let go after that. At some point, the conversation has to be had. Joseph signed a multi-year extension last year, but as we've seen with Aaron McLaren, contracts have been treated as suggestions. Lucas, everything else like that. Is this a possibility? Because I see it as something that could possibly happen. And let's rip the Band-Aid off. They've got a technical alliance with AJ Foyt Racing. They've got 2 drivers that have done really well this year. And both of those drivers are right now in the top 12 in points. Malukas in 12th, Santino Ferrucci in 10th. There has to be a hard look at 2 years into the future because I don't see a driver changing for next year. But 2027, it's very possible if this continues like this.
Yeah, this is something that has come up. Even jokingly, it's just like, well, is Newgarden getting packed and smoked off to ECR, or is he getting seat swapped out for Malukas back into a Foyt car or something like that? To your point, Al Unser Jr. in the late 90s got a very, very long leash for 4 winless and miserable seasons. And of course, we didn't know what he was going through off the track during that whole time.
But even if he was like the physically fit driver that these guys are nowadays, they still wouldn't have won, because if you didn't have a Honda or a Reynard or Firestone tires, you made winning that much more difficult for yourself in the late 90s in kart.
So
where do you come in on this?
So are you spending $10 million to buy Newgarden out of his contract and putting an unproven driver in a Penske seat instead?
Well,
sincere question. Because here's the thing, right? Here's how I sit on this. You're right. Everything that the Hardy and RJ has said in the last 5 minutes is completely correct. I have no issue with anything that was said. Newgarden, I don't know whether the bang to the head in Iowa is the smoking gun for Newgarden's dip in form. I'm not fully convinced that it is, because if it really was that bad, he wouldn't have won 2 Indy 500s and multiple other IndyCar races since then. I think the reason why we're spitballing here is because we don't know. We don't have a clear-cut reason as to why Newgarden has struggled, especially when he's actively made an effort to try and improve his form on track, and it has not worked. I remember punting Grosjean into the wall in the original Nashville track, and his mask slipped and he was berating fans on Twitter, and he would go on to apologize. I haven't forgotten the fact he tried to start his own Amazon affiliate business on Instagram at one point about what motivates people to be successful. He had Bus Bros. He stopped doing Bus Bros and ditched his social media manager so he could, quote, focus on the racing, and then got immediately bumped out of Porsche's IMSA squad. And he followed that up with a very questionable IndyCar season where he won the 500 and then couldn't cash in on anything else really for the rest of the season and was not in title contention. Now, Penske's kind of in a difficult situation here because Will Power is not getting any younger. He's been the best of the Penske so far this season, in 9th place in the standings. But he's not been great by any stretch of the imagination either. He's not looked like winning a race at all this season. McLaughlin, similar. McLaughlin's probably been looking like the closest towards winning a race for Penske this season, but has had a combination of bad luck and embarrassing errors. Newgarden, I feel like, should be owed a year to try and figure this out, because he's won nearly 30 races for Team Penske in 2 500s. Like, and don't get me wrong, he's also gone through a fleet of crew chiefs in the last few years as well. So there's been instability in the team, 2 cheating scandals. He was shoved under a bus by Team Penske for the push to pass scandal last year, and had to take all the brunt of the series and its vitriol as a result of that. There's been a lot of shit that's gone on with Newgarden in the last few years that doesn't fully add up. Go on, Chris.
If I may, I wanted to at least bring that. You mentioned the push to pass scandal. I wanted to bring that up actually. There were massive differences in responses to the drivers when that whole situation happened. And I think part of that has to do with how those drivers reacted to what happened. Scott McLaughlin, when he found out what the disqualification was and all the facts, he just straight up said, I used it here for a total of this many seconds, and I did not gain a position on it. He owned it outright, and like no one really was concerned about it afterwards. And in fact, they treated it as kind of a redemption thing when he won the next race at Barber. Yeah. For Newgarden, he had a press conference that
he broke down and cried. Basically, it was an interesting response, but it didn't come off as a kind of cold, calculated, rehearsed response, which is ironic because that's kind of what Scott gave us. But yet we appreciated how Scott responded more for giving that cold, calculated, rehearsed, prepared statement about it instead of Josef, who gave us genuine emotion. We all shit on him for it.
It looks the optics though. It didn't look like he properly owned it, and the explanation was just weird at best. And then immediately after the press conference was the media bullpen right behind the glass doors at the back of the media center, or the building where the media were stationed at Barber that year. And every driver that came through our section, they all said the same. Almost all of them said the same thing. They didn't buy the explanation. That Josef Newgarden's team thought that the rule change was for the entire season and not just the thermal club. No one bought that. And in fact, and I don't typically swear on the podcast, but Colton Herta said it was bullshit. It just rubbed the explanation rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
You drive for Team Penske, you're not getting the benefit of the doubt from people. Because winners don't get the benefit of the doubt in motorsport. When people win, we want to see them brought down a peg. Alex Palou's reaction to how Mid-Ohio played out and the reaction to him finishing second sums that up beautifully for me. Mm-hmm. To finish my point from earlier, okay, you want to get rid of Josef Newgarden. What are your options? Santino Ferrucci, who is a PR nightmare, but a good driver at this point, has been good in IndyCar for the last season and a half, or David Malukas, who is good, but I honestly still need to see more from him before I'm fully convinced he's ready for a top-tier IndyCar seat. The potential on Malukas is sky high, but I'm not seeing the actual execution of Malukas in races as of yet. I've joked all year that if I was looking for someone to sit in the 12 or 2 car right now, it would be Christian Lundgaard. But it looks like McLaren are actually for once doing the smart thing and tying that man down, which they should. Yeah. He's been brilliant this season.
100%.
And Penske should get the checkbook out and start trying to muscle some people out of their seats because they're Team Penske and they can afford to do that. If Santino Ferrucci is your best option, I'm not fully convinced it's time to move on from Newgarden yet anyway. Because even a bad Newgarden can still get you top 5s. That's the way I look at it, and I can't say that with Ferrucci or Malukas with certainty yet. Even a bad off-the-boil Newgarden is still someone I would happily have in my seat over Malukas or Ferrucci. I think you need to give him another year to figure this out. If it was a 2-year deal he signed and this doesn't work out next year, you can release him for nothing anyway. Yeah.
At least to be clear, the only reason why I said Malukas and Ferrucci was because of the technical alliance. That's
Of course,
it. You can
that
easily.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Penske wrote Malukas a check to put him in that seat in the first place. Then that's been the narrative people have gone with Malukas all season long, because Roger doesn't get out his checkbook unless he thinks you're good. It's that simple. Malukas, Miles Rowe, you name it. Like, he writes the checks for people he believes in. So people were right to pencil Malukas in as the heir to the throne, even though I don't think he's ready yet. That's my opinion, but we shall see on that one. It's a fascinating situation with Newgarden. I eagerly intrigued how the rest. I mean, Iowa is a huge weekend for him. He's normally incredibly strong around here. Penske are very strong on short ovals. If Penske don't take a win out of Iowa, oh boy, they're going to be under severe pressure to win something this season.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
There's one other two-stopper that we forgot to mention, Dre. We need to give this guy his flowers, because for a while it was looking like Rinus VeeKay might not have a seat, and the 500 was not good, but look at the last three results. 9th at Mid-Ohio, 10th at Road America, 7th at Gateway.
It goes to show you that Dale Coyne badly needed the stability more than anything else. Like, there were some decent performances from the standings they had last year, like Toby Sowery, for example, was probably the pick of the bunch out of all their 1 or 2 shot race standings they had over the course of 2024. They had 9 guys drive their cars last year. And it's weird for Dale Coyne, because on the one hand, you have Jacob Abel, who sadly just looks out of his depth at this level. And I love Jacob, I really do, but he's got 64 points on the year, and he's been out of the top 20 once. It's just not good enough, unfortunately. And he's sadly, by a comfortable distance, the worst driver in IndyCar this year. He was bumped from the 500 as well, which didn't help either. But on the other end, you've got Rinus VeeKay, who has had 6 top 10s this season, including a 4th place at Barber. He is extracting everything out of that Dale Coyne package right now. He's 13th in points. He's had 3 top 10s in a row. Rinus VeeKay's talent was never the problem. The problem was proving to people that he had the talent. And I've always said the ECR was not the vessel for him to do that, because that's a team that has been spinning its wheels for years and is doing so again this year, because their team is thoroughly mediocre this season again. Like, Rinus VeeKay was 14th in the standings for 3 years in a row. His replacement, Alex Rossi, is, guess where in the IndyCar standings? That's right, 14th. Funny that. And Christian Anderson, who's having a solid season, is 16th. You know, it's ECR are where they are. VeeKay is doing so in a team that reputation-wise is worse. And ECR had a huge cash injection this year from their new ownership to help prod them along this year. And it's not really worked out for ECR so far this year. The big Alex Rossi investment hasn't got them any closer to where they were last year. So, for me, Rinus VeeKay has been the star of the midfield in IndyCar this season, because weighing up the package he's in with expectation, I don't think there's been anyone in the middle of that pack in IndyCar that's been more impressive so far this year. Him making that 2-stop work was superb.
He started 26th in that race and then ran out of fuel just after the start-finish line, and the quote was tweeted... I think it was Tony Donahue asked Michael Cannon, y'all ran out? I was like, we don't need fuel on the cooldown lap. But, like, that's another thing, too, we should bring up, is the fact that Michael Cannon and Mike Colliver are both with Dale Coyne Racing. When you have a really good driver and an extremely clever engineer behind him, you can make magic happen in a race car. If I was starting an IndyCar team, Michael Cannon's one of the first 2 or 3 people I'd hire to be either him or Craig Hampson. If I could get both, get them. Because you're not going to find too many other people that are better than those two. You're not going to get David Faustino. He's been with Will Power since 2008. You're not going to get a lot of other guys. But Michael Cannon is just absolutely magic when it comes to setting up a car. And Mike Colliver, too, him working with Jacob Abel. I hate the fact that Jacob's like so far back, but I feel like things are they're not able to put things together for a full race, but I get the feeling like they're able to get things together, kind of like how Ed Carpenter racing has been through a lot of the last couple of years, where you can put most of a race together, but not the entire race together overall. But Rossi 15th, and then Christian Rasmussen finishing 25th. He ran out of fuel after his first pit stop. They just they didn't even get any fuel in the car, and that's what happened, which led to Rasmussen saying, "How did this happen?" on the radio. Not ideal. Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. Not a classic for IndyCar in Ohio this year, unfortunately. It was a pretty straightforward race until the ending happened, and people got a kick out of Alex Palou probably not winning, but it's only further put him towards his fourth Astor Cup and his third in a row. So it's a 113-point lead as we head to Iowa this weekend. And for 2 races, we have 7 races to go this season. If Palou gets out of Iowa relatively unscathed, given it's Toronto and Laguna Seca and Portland after that, for arguably 3 of his strongest tracks, we might be done here. Like, it's going to be a game of survival. Chip Ganassi's not great on short ovals traditionally. They haven't been for a few years now. If Palou can manage a pair of top 10s, that would be more than enough. So I think to put him in a really good position to go down the stretch.
Yeah,
and Palou had a podium here last year.
Yeah, he's got a podium here. Oh no, he's only a top 10 driver on ovals instead of a top 2 driver and not 2 driver.
Yeah.
Also, question from earlier: Palou has not won at Toronto. My apologies for that, but he did finish second there with a broken front wing.
It might as well have been a win
there. Yeah, he's going to be fine there.
He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, well, I think
we didn't even talk about the Santino Ferrucci Connor Daly accident either.
What's there to say? Santino Ferrucci driving like a knobhead. Connor Daly isn't having that.
Yeah,
he's making so many friends.
Connor Daly, Ferrucci ran Daly off the road, including himself in that order to do so.
Like, that was just dumb.
It was dumb. Ferrucci was told to yield 3 positions. He did so. Daly called him a clown on Twitter after that happened. Ferrucci responded today by saying, "I got held up by a back marker." So we got beef going into Iowa. So that'll be fun between Santino Ferrucci and Connor Daly. I think they should settle it the old-fashioned way by playing a Pokemon game. Have fun with that. IndyCar will be back this weekend for the doubleheader in Iowa. We'll talk about it on next week, alongside for MotoGP's return to the Saxon Ring for another episode of Our Bikes. And, of course, our 600th episode here on Motorsport 101, another live watch-along event. Should be a fun time. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been RJ O'Connell and Christopher the Hardy. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you guys then. Sayonara.